Welcome back to another episode of Asking for Knowledge. This is episode 11. And today we are going to not necessarily introduce, we've talked about it on virtually every episode, but this will be our first version of the Ask Your Parents version of this podcast. I hesitated there. I could not find the words. Hopefully that does not continue, but we're going to do our best. So today's topic is, what do we want our kids to get out of sports, and what do our kids want to get out of sports? And so we're going to discuss some of our survey responses to get a conversation going around this. So if this is your first time listening, I'm your host, Jeff Mabe, and we have three versions of this podcast, as I've already alluded to. The most regular version is the Asking Out Loud, which is me hopping on here and just trying to ask questions of everything. We'll say it that way. The next is Asking the Experts. And so that's where we bring on folks that are involved in all aspects of youth baseball and youth development and all the other areas around youth and sports. And we try to get the information we can get out of them and see how it applies and where we can use it. And then, again, as already alluded to, the third version is Ask Your Parents. So this is where we either bring on parents that have been down the road, parents that are currently going down the road, parents that have something they want to share with us, or, as in the case of today, survey responses. So part of our role is, or let me back up for a quick second. So if you're a first time listener, our goal is to get to everything first principles on youth baseball. And if you listen to today's episode, you're probably gonna be like, well, that's not you don't talk about baseball a lot. And I think by nature, that's the nature of first principles, is it's going to come back down to human behavior and then build back up from there. And so that tends to happen when you do this. But anyway, we love baseball, and we want to focus specifically on that. So we continue to talk about that, and a lot of the illustrations, if not all, will be related to that. But there'll be days like today where there's broader implications and things that we need to talk about and have conversations about. But as far as who we are as an organization, our mission, our vision, our goal is to help young players master the mechanics, mentality, and joy of baseball. And so again, we conduct surveys to get a better idea of what parents are thinking, feeling, experiencing, so that we can, have relevant conversations about what is actually going on. And so that's part of what we'll discuss today, is the results of those responses and some of the ideas around it, and some of the conversations we may want to have with ourselves first, and then ultimately with our kiddos, to make sure that we're in alignment. So, disclaimer, we did have a small set of responses to our first survey, as you might expect for a new little upstart organization like we are. So we don't have a broad base. We didn't pull this from hundreds of thousands of people, but we got enough, I feel like, to get the conversation going. And so I don't want to wait until we get this massive amount of responses to begin the conversation. So we're going to start it today. But the main topic is, what do we want our kids to get out of youth sports? And I would doubt, as I started preparing for this episode, it kind of brought up some things in that, we really, most of the time, and I know I didn't, I would assume my experience is similar to others, but I didn't sit and think like, I want my kids to be involved with sports because of all the different things that they will get out of it. It really was implied. And so it didn't, just kind of like, okay, they're of age, let's sign them up for some things and see what they like. And, in our household, I just frankly love baseball. Always did and continue to. And so, it's not surprising that both of my boys kind of gravitated in that direction. And I think you would find maybe in your household it's the same thing. Football, basketball, whatever. If you have a enjoyment level with any of those sports, you tend to kind of push your kids in that direction, probably because A, you do enjoy it, but B, because you have a little more confidence there. So you feel like you can help them. But at any rate, we don't really sit down. I don't think, maybe I'm the outlier here, but I did not sit down and think like, I'm really excited about my kids learning about teamwork and discipline and all that stuff, right? I think you sign them up and you get rolling. I think that's pretty much how it goes for most people. So anyway, that's how we get started. So looking at kind of the first question in the survey, this was the question, and then I'll give the responses. So first question, what is the most important aspect of youth baseball for your child? And here were the four answers that we offered that folks could select from, and they could select more than one. But it was skill development, it was having fun, it was building friendships, and then it was preparing for competitive levels. 100% of those that completed the survey said skill development was the most important aspect of youth baseball for them. So in fairness to the question, we probably did not leave enough room for responses. So we'll take that as an area of improvement to get more clarity in future surveys. So we'll really be more thoughtful about constructing those questions and leaving room for more answers, or to try to construct better answers. Because it's one of those I didn't really get there until after the fact that skill development can mean a lot of different things. And that's where it's trying to analyze these results. It was like, okay, well, what do they mean? So I hope I'm not taking liberties with interpretation, but I believe it could be interpreted as they want their child to improve in the game and become a better player. And we'll talk about in just a minute kind of the other side of that and another question, and I think it may be a little different, but for now we're going to stick with skill development within the particular sport and helping the kids become a better player. And again, we did have preparing for competitive levels was an additional response in about 25% of the responses. So there was an element there. But I was a bit surprised. I figured, given that you could select multiples, I figured that having fun would be selected 100%. But it was not selected at all, which is curious. But nonetheless, it is the response. So again, I could have framed these questions better, but my intended goal was to understand really what parents were wanting out of youth baseball. And so let's, talk through that question for just a minute with an exercise you can do for yourself or with yourself. Start by asking, what do you want your kids to get out of baseball or whatever sport they've chosen to participate in? So, if you need to, just pause the podcast and just sit for a minute and just reflect and think, what do I really want my kids to get out of this? And if it helps, establish some importance around why you would want to go through this as an exercise, is because in today's landscape, you are going to be investing a significant amount of time and money in pursuing this. In most cases, not all, but in most. And so I think it would be wise to work through that and to work through that question for yourself, given what it's going to require of you and of your family. Again, not beating a dead horse, but it is, I just don't run into many people that are thrilled about youth sports. I had multiple conversations, and again, I'm trying not to prompt or I really try to ask questions and get feedback from parents without presenting as anybody that is not happy with the system. I really want like unfiltered, honest opinions just to see what the sentiment is. And I continue, again, multiple conversations this week where people are saying it's too much. It's not appropriate. It's whatever. But, if I want my child to participate and my child's in any way halfway decent, like this is kind of the price of admission. Like it is what it is. I just have to be a part of it. I'm not happy about it, but it is what it is. That's what I run into. And so I just believe we need to take a minute and say, okay, what do I really want my children to get out of this? So do that exercise. I think it would be helpful to do that. So on a greater level, I decided to consult the source of all knowledge, not really, but ChatGPT, for some help in answering this question. So since our survey responses were limited, I wanted to get a broader perspective and say, okay, what do most parents want for their kids in sports? And so I queried ChatGPT, and this is version 1.0, which does search the web. And the query was, what do most parents want their kids to get out of sport? And these were the responses. So physical health and fitness, social skills and teamwork, character development and life skills, self-confidence and independence, discipline and responsibility, stress relief and fun, and then exposure to diverse experiences and challenges. My first take when I read this was BS. Like these responses are like, they're not in line with what I've seen and what I've experienced. Now, we give lip service to these things, but it doesn't line up with what the reality is. And so I guess I'm getting to that age where I just challenge everything, get off my lawn type stuff. But I kind of call BS on this, and I'm like, okay, tell me what your sources are. This is again a query to ChatGPT, and these were the sources. So Aspen Institute's Project Play, their state of play reports that, and this is nationwide data on youth sports participation and parent perspectives. These reports consistently highlight parents' emphasis on health, character building, and enjoyment. Health, character building, and enjoyment. Okay? The National Alliance for Youth Sports says parents' motives for enrolling children in sports involves their desire for them to experience discipline, teamwork, and improve physical fitness. Okay? So obviously the results of ChatGPT, the original summary were a summary of these specific results. I don't know if I made that clear, but this is me kind of trying to go a level deeper and say, okay, you say this is a summary of what parents want. Like what's your data set? What are your reports? And this is kind of one layer deeper. So without getting into the individual studies, we're looking more into I guess a summary of these organizations and what they have found. So this is sports and fitness. The industry commonly cites fitness, fun, and socialization as to why they enroll their kids in sports. So 3 examples, and there are more. I'm not going to get into them. I don't know that it's fruitful, but they're all saying fitness, fun, teamwork, discipline, all these things as reasons parents are signing up. Our survey response was skill development. Again, we'll talk in just a second about what I believe to be a slight deviation of how I may have misunderstood or interpreted skill development. But I took it to mean sport-specific skills, and I believe the parents in our surveys responded meaning more life skills. And so this is a pretty important distinction, because if it is life skills, then it is in line with what these organizations have found. So I'm gonna be led to believe that that's what was meant and what most parents want. But needless to say, all these organizations say that these are the things that parents want. So, is there a gap between what we say we want and what the reality of the system? And if you want to know what I am referring to when I talk about system, I think go back to one of the early episodes, maybe episode 1, and I'll give you that's my definition of what the system means to me and what I'm talking about when I say the system. But does this system reflect our desires as parents? Generally speaking, and this is general, and I can tell you, of anybody listening to this, there's going to be quite a few that are going to probably fight with me over this. But generally speaking, free market resources tend to move and align to help people get what they want. Now, there's a lot of other nuances there with just a lot of different things. Okay. I don't want to oversimplify it, but by and large, things that are not acted upon by outside forces, in a capitalist society, resources align and goods and services become available based on what people want. So if these summaries from ChatGPT are correct, and if I'm interpreting our parent surveys correct, the real question of the day is, if parents want children to have fun and experience teamwork and learn discipline, does our current system reflect that, or does it reflect something else? So now that we've kind of done the exercise of what specifically do we want our kids to get out of sports, we can take another step and say, okay, now that we've defined that, what do the sports teams, leagues, however you want to say it, that they are participating in reflect that? Do we say we want these things for our kids, and then we've got them in a system that doesn't produce that? And we're not here. Again, the whole brand is asking for knowledge. So we're not here to interject or to place judgment on, or to give necessarily even our opinions, although we probably will, and I'm sure, we do in every episode. But we're not here to we just want to help people get what they want. And it starts with awareness. So being aware, consciously saying, this is what I want my kids to get out of this, and then making sure that they are participating in activities that reflect that. And I'll throw a quick example out there, and I never want to come across as judgmental. We've got to walk our own paths, and we've got to figure these things out for ourselves. But when I look at youth travel baseball specifically, I see teams that are really struggling to stay together. And so if it's fun, if it's teamwork, if it's discipline, it would appear that either the system itself or the people participating in the system are operating in a way that is counter to that. Otherwise, teams would stick together, they would push through the adversity, they would focus on the fun of the game, and then, each season they would look for that growth. So if we're in alignment here, those, in my opinion, that's what the results would be. And it doesn't appear that that's the case. But again, I'm not the judge and the jury on this. You are, for your own individual life and your kids' life. So take that decision. Now, we are going to create better surveys and new surveys that ask better questions. So we want to get better responses on this and see if we can get more specific answers to gauge opinions and where people stand on this. So we'll get better at that. But another question we had in the survey: what do you think players value most about youth baseball? So what do you think players value most about youth baseball? This was the question, and the optional responses, again, you could select more than one, were playing time, team camaraderie, winning games, and learning new skills. Team camaraderie was the overwhelming favorite, and then coming in second was playing time. And by second, I mean kind of a distant second. So like 75 to 25. Everybody said team camaraderie, 100%. And then, additional responses with playing time. So that tells me the team aspect is front and center, at least in the terms of our survey responses, which does seem to align with the summary and the institutions that reported back on what parents want. But this is more framed around what kids want or what they value most. So that does seem to line up. One important thing here. And maybe it's best framed as a question, but is there a gap between skill development? So for parents saying that that's one of the most important things for them in their kids playing youth baseball, and team camaraderie, does that leave a gap between what I want maybe as a parent versus what my kid wants? And I don't know. But I think if we start with the foundation of really trying to understand what our player wants, and this is extremely hard, extremely hard. I know from multitudes of experience here, trying to get a child, and this is not just my own. I'm not talking just in terms of my own kids. I'm talking about all the kids I've dealt with since I've dealt with kids. I guess before it was coaching, it was like, children's church or whatever, the church where the kids come in. I think it's called children's church, but, all the way back to there, trying to get kids to really tell you what they want. Now, I'm hungry, I'm tired, I'm thirsty, I want to go play, I don't want to sit in this chair. Those are more, most kids don't have trouble communicating those. What is the real reason that you want to play baseball? That's a whole different thing. And so I admit and acknowledge that this is an extremely hard thing. So, sitting down and having a conversation with your 6, 7, 8-year-old about what they really want out of baseball or youth sports in general is a really challenging proposition, because they're usually just going to regurgitate what you've already told them. I want to learn hard work, Dad. I want to, and most of them are going to say, have fun or something along those lines, hang out with my buddies, something like that. But I don't think we should avoid trying. I think we just have to be more diligent in asking questions and probing and gaining a better understanding. One of the fun things about parenting is, trying to get answers from your kids without developing a complex, or without them developing a complex. So I'll give you an example here. All right, I feel like I've been a little too theoretical and it's a little too dry with all the data and the summaries and the questions. But my middle son decided at the end of the spring that he wanted to hunt and fish and shoot bows and do all that kind of stuff, and he just wasn't sure he wanted to play baseball anymore. And so it kicked off this, inquisition, if you will, of my wife and I trying to figure out what was really going on, right? Was it just the fact that he had more fun doing these other things and these other activities, and he just enjoyed that more than baseball? Was it, problems with teammates that he didn't want to talk about? Was it personal performance? Was it team performance? Was it, the other coaches on the team? Was it me as a dad and a coach? What was it? Too many games, too much travel, who knows? Like, we really tried to understand what was going on and really just could not get answers out of him. And ultimately, he did decide to continue playing. And, thankfully, he started off the fall, pretty strong. And it was only after a couple tournaments in the fall when he had done well that he could finally say, yeah, I wanted to quit because I wasn't doing well. He was struggling at the plate, and he was having a tough time, but he could not or did not or for whatever reason, I don't know, I'm not going to spend any time there, but it's just he could not verbalize or didn't want to verbalize that he was struggling. And again, it's a 10, 11-year-old kid, so it's tough to sit and say like, oh, he just didn't want to tell us, or he just really didn't understand what's going on. But the point of the matter is, we could not drag it out of him, but we continued to try to prompt the conversation to gain understanding. And I would encourage you to do the same. And it's going to be different levels for all kids. Some kids are an open book. Mine tend to be a little more, I guess reluctant is probably not the right word, but it's just harder to get much out of them when it comes to stuff like this. So you're going to experience different things across the board there. But I believe we're best served by trying, at least attempting. Maybe you don't get anything out of it. But the big thing here is, if my goal is skill development, his goal is having fun, that is a pretty significant gap. I'm looking at him and saying, why is he not trying to be better? And he's looking at it saying, why are you putting so much pressure on me? I just want to hang out with my buds. Again, to go to real world experience, I experienced this a lot running kids classes at the gym. I'd have a parent that was super motivated and working out multiple days a week and giving their best. And they'd say, hey, I need to get my kid in here. And, the kid would come, and the kid's goal was to stay at rest. He didn't want to work hard and didn't want to, push himself or herself. And so, there's a gap there. And, some of those moments really challenged my motivational skills as a coach to say like, hey, mom or dad or whoever, they signed you up to come here. So I'm going to need you to do some things while you're here. But the kid going, what the heck's going on? I don't even really want to be here. And the sad part to me is this phenomenon is repeated across fields and courts and in gyms every single day. Final question we'll discuss. What motivates, and again, this is back from the survey, so what motivates your family to stay involved in youth baseball? This was the question. The options were building life skills, enjoyment of the sport, pursuit of athletic scholarships, and staying active. So the answers were about 50-50 between building life skills and enjoyment of the sport, which enjoyment of the sport got about 70+% of the response. So the fun part was a huge emphasis as to why they continued to stay involved. So that's good. So coming back full circle, I do wonder if the majority of the skill development answers from the first question were kind of centered around life skill development versus specific skill development in baseball. But we'll use that again as a takeaway for future episodes, future surveys to dig deeper and ask better questions to get better answers. So, learning experience there. So, if life skills and fun are why we continue, how do we make sure that focus stays where it needs to be? And I think one of the best ways to respond to this is to look at the conversations we have around performance. So again, building life skills, focusing on enjoyment. What do those conversations look like? Are they focused specifically on the skill of baseball, or fill in the blank for whatever sport? Or do you kind of zoom out and take a broader view and an approach to, okay, where do these situations apply in real life? And as an example, let's say a kid has a terrible weekend at the plate. Do we make it all specifically about baseball, right? You took this pitch, you swung at this pitch, you didn't swing at this pitch, you were way out in front on the curveball, or you couldn't adjust to the off speed, kind of the same thing, I guess. But the kid was throwing slow, and you just didn't adjust for an entire weekend. The pitchers were lower quality, or the pitchers were higher quality, and you couldn't adjust, and you got blown away every at bat. Does the conversation look like that, or does the conversation take more of a process approach and say, okay, what led us to this? What was your preparation leading up to this week? Did you do any tee work? Did you do any dry swings? Did you put forth your best effort in practice? During the games, were you paying attention to the pitcher? Were you paying attention to how he was pitching the other kids? Were you paying attention to how the umpire was calling the game? All these different things that are much more what I would consider to be process oriented, or I don't know how to say this, a thought process of kind of attacking hitting. I wish I'd worded that better, but we're on the fly here. But what are we doing as far as how we address these situations and performances? So if we say building life skills, skill development, enjoyment, do our conversations match that? Or do they become all about performance in the moment? Something to think about. Again, fair warning, get ready for a bunch of nothingness from your young kiddos, maybe a blank stare, maybe an emotional response. You never know what you're going to get, but you can always sow those seeds. You can begin to help them understand, listen, there are areas in life you can control, and there's areas where you can't. And in the ones you can control, you have the opportunity to improve the outcome. There's times when it's just out of your control. So there will certainly always be times we need to talk about the specifics of the game, but if that is our only area of focus, we will miss those opportunities to build those life skills. So drawing specific attention to the idea that there is a greater process in life. There's something greater at play that if you can tap into it and use it, you can experience better performances. My poor children, at least the older two, have probably heard the word process a billion times. and reason being is this is an idea that I desperately want them to understand. Process. Outcomes happen. Sometimes we control them, sometimes we don't. But giving our kids the gift of understanding their own agency, again, focusing on the things they can control, the things they can't control, identifying which is which, I believe can make things more enjoyable. Certainly it's a transferable skill in every other area I've worked in. So both in sports and in business, in life, in relationships, having that greater perspective of process is one of those things that is, man, what a gift to know and understand, because you can know that, hey, I can be bad today. I can say the wrong thing to my spouse, but if I'm within a process, it doesn't identify me as something. That mistake doesn't hang with me because I can reflect on it, I can make the change, and I can move forward. And if you've not listen to our Talata episode, go back and listen to the Talata episode. I believe it was episode 10. So go check that out. But it gives you a framework you can teach your children for doing just that. Again, there's going to be times of emotion. There's going to be times where there's just things that well up because they're children. And quite frankly, as adults, the same things happen to us. That never goes away. It's part of the human experience. But making sure they understand there's a greater process at play. Observing kids in sports and, as I just alluded to, adults in real life. So this is not just kids. The ones that I see and run into and talk to that appear to be the most miserable are the ones who feel like they don't have any control over their circumstances. They stay in the moment 100% of the time, and really everything becomes an issue with somebody or something else. So something that's a part of it, and I think it is extremely hard to find joy or hope when you live this way because you're helpless. You're a victim of everything, literally. So helping them understand they have the power of choices. If we're going to use this as an opportunity to build life skills, making sure that our conversations are appropriate to help them do that. We're figuring this out as we go. So, to wrap things up today, three main points, takeaways, discussions, however you want to look at it. Spend some time reflecting on what you really want your kids to get out of sports. And this may require some hard decisions. Yeah, seriously, I know it may, because you may look at it and say, my gosh, we've gotten into something that really this is not what I intended. And, you know, we got to make a hard decision. Maybe we got to leave a team. Maybe we got to, I don't know, drop a sport. Maybe we got to do things differently. But you may realize, you may come to that conclusion and just have the courage to make that decision if you're there. But make sure that what you're participating in, what your athlete's participating in, is in alignment with what you're hoping for them to get out of it, and you don't kind of get swept away in something that you never intended to be a part of. Second thing, talk to your kids about what they want from sports. So again, understand that this may be a challenging thing. It's not easy. Kids aren't going to be able to tell you what they want a lot of the times. So go in it with that understanding. But use your skills of logic and reason to be able to frame the questions and get the answers that you're looking for to gain an understanding of their perspective on where they're at. You may find out that they love their team and they're super happy. Maybe they're not playing the position that you think they should, but they're happy as they can be. I don't know. That's one example. Probably shouldn't have gone with that example in the summary, but oh well. It is what it is. Talk to your kids. Try to gain perspective on what they want out of sports and make sure that you're doing your best to bridge that gap between what you hope to get out of it, what you hope they get out of it, and what they are getting out of it and what they want to get out of themselves. And then lastly, if our focus is on building life skills and having our kids enjoy sports, let's make sure that our conversations reflect that, keeping the focus on their greater role, or the greater process, and their role in that process. Where do they have control? Where do they have the power of choice? What are the things they don't control? One of the phrases I use with my kids all the time is, you get to make your own choices. Life's just a series of choices, and they have good consequences and bad consequences, but you just got to make the choices. And, you know, as much as I would love to construct the perfect life for you, I can't do it because it's not my life. So you get to choose. So making sure that our kids are aware of that they retain that in most circumstances, even if they're responding to something that was kind of forced on them by somebody else, or some other situation, they then get a choice of how they respond. But they always, always, always have a choice of some type. So anyway, hope that's helpful. Hope that prompts some thought. If you're enjoying the show, please make sure to follow and subscribe. We've been pushing some stuff out, making sure that everybody's aware, but we can always use help in that area. So if you are enjoying it, please share it. Share it with your friends. Share it on your feeds, and let people know we are here blabbering on and on and on about sports and process and all kinds of things. And I hope we're all growing from it. Participate in our surveys. So we will be sending more out. So look for those, and hopefully they'll have better questions. So they'll allow for better podcast topics and reviews. So we are all in a process of growth and learning. We are no different here at Asking for Knowledge. Until next time, keep on asking for knowledge.